Number 3. The Purple Death. The first wave of the Spanish flu started as a regular seasonal flu. In fact, you probably have it right now. But it quickly developed through two brutal waves into a monster that hunted humans indiscriminately, earning its infamous title, the Purple Death. During its first wave, victims had relatively mild symptoms like your usual cough and a sneeze from allergies, and the virus only affected a small number of people. The flu wave started gaining speed at the worst place and at the worst time, during World War I, with factors such as close living quarters, a lack of sanitation, fatigue, and overall no one really caring if they got sick. When literal bombs were flying overhead, the flu was able to quickly spread from one camp to another. And the first wave really was just a seasonal flu, thank God, as it died down when summer hit and more soldiers were outside than indoors. Or at least that's what health experts at the time thought. You see, there is a huge underestimate of the Spanish flu. Many doctors at the time saw the mild conditions, short-lived outbreak, and pushed the Spanish flu off to the side, focusing only on highlighting the good parts about the war and depicting to media and soldiers that the flu, it was nothing to worry about. And just like that, when the summer of 1918 came to an end, along with the flu season, the Spanish flu was out of everyone's mind. But it wasn't nearly over. The H1N1 virus that causes the Spanish flu underwent intense mutations that allowed it to become immune to treatments at the time, and also made the nature of the virus a lot more aggressive and spread faster on a much wider scale. The virus now had a higher mortality rate at 2 to 20% in healthy young adults, which is very unusual for the typical flu season, and especially during a time of war, hospital beds were overtaken by the number of people seeking aid. With a stronger breed of the virus and World War I still fighting on strong, the virus spread through many boats, railroads, and soldier barracks. But soon enough, most of Europe and the Americas were infected with the Purple Death. Why is it called the Purple Death? Well, if you had gotten this virus during the peak of in fall 1918, the flu would cause you to have severe fevers up to 109 degrees Fahrenheit. You would be profusely bleeding out blood through your nose, and eventually the virus would cause you to have heliocyanosis, a deadly symptom of the virus that caused your lungs to fill with mucus and spit, which would then lead your body to be starved of oxygen. As a result, your body would start from your fingers, toes, and mouth to turn purple and blue. A trademark of the Purple Death that was left all over Europe and the Americas. And within just 6 weeks of the second wave, roughly 20 to 40 million people had been killed worldwide. Wave 3. Now the third wave was not as severe as the second wave due to people actually coming together and realizing that this was a huge problem. Health officials started enforcing tactics such as social distancing and quarantine, which minimized the spread tremendously. However, there were still new mutations of the virus causing epidemics worldwide, and the symptoms are still just as terrifying. Number 2. Bubonic Plague. The bubonic plague is likely the most infamous plague throughout history. In fact, the name itself, the Black Death, just sounds like something that would kill off all of humanity. The plague arrived in Messina, Europe, in October 1347, when 12 ships from the Black Sea docked in Messina. Tradesmen and sailors eagerly awaited the fleet's arrival of different items from overseas, but when the boat docked, they were met with a terrible surprise. Over 80% of the crew was dead, and others who were alive were covered in black boils all over their body, oozing pus from their sores. After seeing the fleet of death ships, city officials immediately ordered the ships out of the harbor, but the damage was already done. The virus had spread between humans, rats, and fleas. Over the next 5 years, the infamous Black Death would kill over 20 million people in Europe, almost a third of the continent's population. The Black Death was characterized as being a very mysterious and ruthless plague. Historians argue that during the peak of its outbreak, even a touch of someone's clothes who was infected would cause it to spread onto you. Along with being an airborne virus, one of the most horrifying reasons why the bubonic plague was so contagious was because it lay in fleas and rats all over Europe. During the medieval period, every single kingdom would use the feudal systems where peasants make up 90% of the population and live in the worst conditions imaginable. These peasants frequently slept in areas next to fleas and rodents, making their home perfect incubators for the virus to develop in. The disease was also terrifyingly efficient in killing. People who were healthy going to bed at night could wake up the next morning dead and covered in black pores. And doctors at the time? Well, they weren't exactly the most friendly nor helpful. During the peaks of the bubonic plague, most doctors refused to see any patients, and when they did, they would wear the infamous suit of death. Physicians relied on gruesome and unsophisticated techniques, such as boil lancing, where they would literally stick a needle through any pores you had in an attempt to remove all the blood from it. Doctors would also use superstitious practices such as burning aromatic herbs on the infected skin and bathing in rosewater or vinegar. But the main cure people believed in was repenting to God. You see, during the Dark Ages in Europe, priests, rulers, doctors, peasants all believed that the Black Death was a punishment from God, and when you got infected, the only way to get cured was to win God's forgiveness. Thus, people purged their communities of any heretics and criminals, burning them at the stake as a sacrifice to God. Number 1. The Speckled Monster. Smallpox earned its nickname, the Speckled Monster, due to the severe scarring it caused on victims' bodies, which stayed with them for the rest of their lives, if the victim was lucky enough to be alive in the first place. Smallpox is a disease that has been literally hunting humans for over 3,000 years. Smallpox is caused by a variola virus that spreads through coughing, sneezing, and of course touching someone with the infected skin. If you were unfortunate enough to develop this disease, you would start getting throbbing headaches, weakness and cold all over your body, and the infamous pus and blood-filled blisters would cover your entire body. Starting in the 1900s, smallpox deaths started being documented by health organizations around the world, and since the 20th century, that number has reached over 300 million people. To put that into perspective, that's almost the entire population of the United States. Today, that is insane. And that's not even all of it. You see, remember how I said earlier that smallpox has been at the top of the food chain for over 3,000 years? Well, the earliest evidence of this monster is in the ancient pharaoh Ramses V of Egypt, who had small pustules all over his body and died in 1157 BCE, meaning that the virus has been active since at least the Egyptian Empire. So who knows how many people died in total of this disease? What made this disease dominate the world for so long was that there was no cure, and continues to be no cure today. Furthermore, once contracting the disease, you were cursed with a 20 to 50% death rate. If you were part of the elite people who survived this disease, you would be suffering from organ failure, partial blindness, and disfiguring scars which marked your body for the rest of your life, resulting in a lifetime of discrimination and isolation. These reasons make this virus a perfect weapon in war. During the French and Indian War, a letter between two highly respected British generals, Geoffrey Armist and Colonel Henry Bonk, revealed that the generals were ordering smallpox-infested blankets, which the host had died in, to be distributed to the Native American populations allied with the French as peace offerings, only to rush the sick tribes after a couple weeks and gain strategic lands for war. Let's say you were a poor farmer during medieval Europe. If you had contracted smallpox, the first person you would go see is a priest. The Catholic priest would tell you that God is unhappy with your works and the devil has cursed you. After which you would see a doctor, and keep in mind there were no antibiotics, no antiviral treatments. The doctor would then strap you down and begin a process known as bloodletting, where he would cut your major arteries and blood vessels. If you survived this procedure, you would be extremely weak, with your respiratory systems beginning to shut down as the virus slowly consumed you whole. So why are we not isolated in our rooms every day because of this virus? Well, smallpox was the first and only disease today to be fully eradicated on Earth. I mean, if they were choosing a virus to get rid of, they definitely chose a great one. In 1967, the World Health Organization launched its Global Smallpox Eradication Program, eradicating smallpox within just 10 years. And to me, that is just crazy that in just 10 years, this horrible disease that has been killing millions of humans throughout history was fully eradicated. This program utilized public health measures such as quarantine, contact tracing, sanitizations, and mass vaccine distribution. For example, even during the peaks of the Cold War, with the intense rivalry between the Soviet Union and the United States with their nuclear arms races, both enemies joined forces in complete cooperation to eliminate the speckled monster. I guess it really does take a common enemy to unite humanity. Hey, thanks for watching. If you find any more of this stuff interesting, you can check out the World Health Organization website to learn more. And who knows, maybe all these viruses could be eradicated in the future. Have a great day.